The strange rituals inmates invent to survive ADX Florence. They call it the clean version of hell, a place where silence is a weapon, and the walls themselves feel like they're listening. Inside ADX Florence, the most locked-down prison on Earth, survival is not about strength, muscles, or power. It's about the mind. Because here, inmates don't break bones. They break reality. In this documentary, you're about to witness the hidden rituals, bizarre, obsessive, and almost supernatural, that inmates secretly invented just to keep themselves sane. Rituals no official report talks about. Rituals that guards pretend don't exist. Rituals that former inmates swear saved their souls or destroyed them completely. From the man who carved an imaginary companion into a steel bed frame, to the inmate who believed ADX had a heartbeat, to the terrifying whisper ritual that spread through an entire cell block like a curse. These aren't myths. These aren't rumors. These are the psychological survival games created by inmates living in 23-hour silence, where one wrong thought can trap you forever. And tonight, you'll see how one inmate, Anonymous number 47, uncovered a ritual so dark, so obsessive, that the staff had to erase every trace of his existence just to keep it from spreading. This is not just a story of punishment. It's a story of what the human mind does when it has no escape. Welcome to ADX. Welcome to the rituals. And whatever you do, don't repeat them. The cell that thinks back. ADX cells are designed to erase a man's sense of time, but some inmates claim time isn't the only thing that changes. They say the cell begins thinking with you, or against you. Inmate number 47, the man whose story threads through this entire documentary, first arrived in ADX on a cold January morning. Shackles on his wrists, black box on his waist, guard escort on every side. He wasn't the toughest inmate. He wasn't the most dangerous. But he would become the most haunted. The moment the steel door closed behind him, he noticed something strange. Not the silence. Everyone expects that. It was the rhythm, a pattern in the silence, like the faint click of metal, then a pause, then another. At first, he thought it was just settling noises from the building. But at ADX, nothing settles. Everything is engineered, measured, controlled. Even the air is calculated. He spent hours lying on the concrete bunk, staring at the slot in the door. Click, pause, click. It was too deliberate. Some inmates claim the sound is the air system adjusting pressure. Others say it's the staff monitoring your breathing. But the longest-serving inmates whisper a different explanation. The cell listens, and eventually it replies. By day 3, number 47 began responding to the clicks. One tap on the wall. Then he waited. 2 taps answered back. Now, to a man locked in total isolation, any sense of communication, real or imaginary, becomes a ritual, a lifeline, a companion. He created a schedule. 3 taps every morning. A single tap at night before sleeping. Silence until the next day. But the cell didn't follow his rules. Sometimes it clicked minutes early, sometimes hours late. And then one night, it tapped without him tapping first. That's when he realized he wasn't just communicating with the cell. He was following someone else's ritual. Someone who used to live in that very room. And the worst part? Staff had no record of the previous occupant, or what happened to him. The first ritual, mapping the void. In the world outside, a map is just a tool. But inside ADX, it becomes a religion. Psychologists say the human brain panics without spatial awareness. When you can't see beyond your 4 walls, your mind begins stretching reality to fill the gaps, creating shadows, voices, and in some cases, entire worlds. That's why inmates invented the first secret ritual, mapping the void. Each inmate does it differently. Some trace patterns on the wall with a fingernail. Some scratch tiny marks under the sink. Others memorize the exact number of steps from bed to toilet, toilet to door, door to window, repeating it endlessly until it becomes a mantra. But number 47's ritual was different. He didn't map his cell. He mapped something else. He began tracking the click patterns, those strange, irregular sounds he believed were messages. He wrote them in the only place guards rarely check, the 4th layer of toilet paper inside the roll. He tore it open, hid the log, used the outer layers normally. Each night, he updated it. Soon he noticed a disturbing pattern. The clicks repeated every 6 days. Never 5, never 7, 6. A number inmates whisper about for years. A cycle, a countdown, a ritual older than the prison itself. On the 6th night, the clicking always stopped until sunrise. Many inmates believed that night was when the block watches. Others believed it was when the forgotten walk. Number 47 didn't believe anything. Not yet. He just knew that on day 6, the clicks weren't coming from the air system. They were coming from the walls, as if something or someone was moving inside them. The man who spoke to the lights. Every prison has stories about haunted cells and cursed inmates. But ADX Florence has something stranger, engineered loneliness. And loneliness breeds rituals. One of the most chilling rituals belonged to inmate Harlan Pierce, a man so unpredictable that even ADX staff avoided saying his name. Pierce believed the fluorescent lights in his cell were communicating with him, not flickering randomly, but sending coded signals. A Morse code for the damned. He created a ritual he called light listening. Every morning, he stood perfectly still in the center of his cell and waited for the first flicker. If it flickered twice, he would eat. If it flickered once, he would skip his meal. If it didn't flicker at all, he wouldn't speak for the entire day. This ritual grew so extreme that staff had to force-feed him multiple times. But here's the twist. Pierce and inmate number 47 never met, never spoke, never even saw each other. Yet their rituals began syncing. On the same days the clicks went silent for number 47, Pierce reported dead lights, total stillness, no flickers, no movement, as if the entire block held its breath. Staff brushed it off as coincidence. But inmates knew better. They believed the block ran on cycles. When one man's ritual stopped, another man's would start. And on the 6th night, the night where all rituals aligned, something happened that even the guards refused to write in their reports. Pierce screamed for 7 hours straight, not in pain, but in warning, as if he saw something coming. Something only the rituals prepared him for. The shadow trade. In ADX, communication between cells is nearly impossible. But humans are persistent, and where there is silence, they invent noise. The shadow trade is one of the prison's oldest and strangest rituals, a secret exchange system that doesn't use contraband, notes, or food, but shadows. When the afternoon sun hits the narrow slit of a cell window, it casts a long beam across the block. Inmates discover that if they stand in a certain position at a certain time, their shadow stretches onto the opposite wall, briefly connecting them with another prisoner. They called this the shadow meeting. Not a conversation, a ritual. Each gesture meant something. A raised arm meant, I'm alive. A lowered head meant, I heard something last night. 2 taps against the wall meant talk tomorrow. But there was one gesture no inmate ever made voluntarily. The still shadow, a motionless silhouette that appeared even when the inmate was sitting or lying down. A shadow that didn't match the man who cast it. Inmate number 47 saw it for the first time on his 3rd week. His own shadow stood perfectly still, even though he was pacing. He froze. The shadow didn't. It slowly lifted its hand and tapped the wall. Once, twice, a 3rd time. Then it vanished. Guards insisted it was a trick of the light. Inmates said it was a ritual response from a previous occupant. But number 47 believed something far worse. Someone else had learned his rituals. Someone who lived in the block long before him. Someone who wasn't done talking. The Echo Man. By week 4, inmate number 47 had accepted one truth every ADX prisoner eventually learns. You don't choose the rituals. The rituals choose you. Late one night, during the quietest hour, when even the air vents seemed to hold their breath, number 47 woke up to a sound that didn't belong in ADX. A voice. Not loud, not clear, just a broken murmur echoing through the vent above his bed. It sounded like someone whispering from a tunnel far, far away. At first he thought it was a dream, but the whisper repeated. A single phrase. Muffled, distorted, almost like a chant. He sat up, pressing his ear to the metal vent, and what he heard next would become one of the prison's darkest legends. Do not speak until the echo dies. He froze. This wasn't a guard. Guards don't whisper. Guards don't chant. Guards don't repeat the exact same phrase in perfect 1-hour intervals. He tried replying. Who's there? No answer. He pounded the wall. Still nothing. But 1 hour later, the chant returned, this time louder, clearer. Do not speak until the echo dies. His throat tightened. He wasn't imagining it. He later learned inmates called the whisperer the Echo Man, a ghost story for some, an explanation for madness for others, but for few a warning. They believe the Echo Man was once an inmate who fell into complete sensory collapse, a man who lost track of time, identity, and even language. Rumor said that before he vanished, he repeated only one phrase to anyone who would listen. Do not answer the voices. Wait for the echo to die first, or it becomes yours. Whether real or imagined, the Echo Man ritual spread across the block like wildfire. If you heard him, you were not supposed to reply, not supposed to mimic, not supposed to acknowledge. Because inmates believe the Echo Man wasn't trying to communicate. He was trying to transfer something. A burden, a memory, a madness. And that madness could travel through vents, walls, or silence itself. But number 47 made one fatal mistake. On the 5th night of hearing the whisper, exhausted and terrified, he whispered back, "What echo?" The vent went silent. Not for an hour. Not for a night. For 3 full days. No whispers. No clicks. No sounds. Just dead, suffocating quiet. Until the 4th night, when the Echo Man answered with something new. A voice deeper. Closer. Standing right next to the door close. Now it is your turn to echo. From that moment on, the ritual wasn't something number 47 listened to. It was something that followed him, something that repeated his breaths, his movements, his thoughts, and for the first time, he understood why the previous occupant left no records. Some rituals didn't help inmates survive ADX. Some rituals erased them. The 6th night phenomenon. Every prisoner at ADX eventually hears about the 6th night. It's not written in any rule book, not spoken of by staff. But among the inmates, it's sacred and terrifying. It's a night when the rituals sink, when the block falls silent, when the building feels alive, when survival becomes a test. And for inmate number 47, his first 6th night arrived faster than he expected. The signs showed up early. The clicks in the walls, the ones he had mapped obsessively, stopped too soon. Much too soon. The pattern broke for the first time. Then the lights dimmed for a split second, just long enough for him to feel his stomach drop. And finally, the air changed. The temperature in his cell shifted, dropping as if someone had opened a freezer door. He wasn't afraid of the darkness. He wasn't afraid of isolation. He was afraid because every ritual he had learned from the shadows, the clicks, the vent whispers, suddenly aligned to one feeling. The block is preparing. At 3:14 a.m., the moment inmates swear the 6th night begins, number 47 heard the first sign. A single tap, not from the wall, from the floor below him. He crouched, pressing his palm to the cold concrete. Another tap, then another, slow, rhythmic, measured, like footsteps. Every prisoner knows footsteps inside ADX at that hour don't belong to guards. Guards walk in groups. Boots. Heavy. Predictable. These weren't boots. These were bare feet. Light. Careful. Too soft to be human, yet too real to be imagination. The sound circled under his cell, tracing a perfect loop around his floor. Once. Twice. A third time. Then it stopped directly beneath his bed. Silence. His heart pounded so loudly he worried the block could hear it. Then the voice came, not from the vent, not from the wall, but from the concrete beneath him, vibrating through the floor. Stay still, or we'll choose you. He froze, more out of instinct than belief. A faint shadow began to form under his metal bunk. At first, he thought it was just the angle of the hallway lights. But then it moved, The shadow stretched slowly across the cell floor, reaching for the door, even though no one stood outside. It wasn't the shadow of a person. It wasn't shaped like anything you recognized. It looked like a stain that had learned how to crawl. Then came the sound that made every inmate on the block bolt awake. A long, scraping noise, as if nails were dragging across concrete. The shadow trembled, then retracted violently, sucked back beneath the bunk as if pulled by an unseen force. And the voice whispered one last time, "Until sunrise, do not breathe loudly." He didn't sleep. No one did. 6 hours later, when the lights brightened and the morning food slot opened, every inmate on that block reported the same thing. Something walked the halls that night. Something that followed sound. Something that only appears on the 6-night cycle, and only leaves when it finds a cell it likes. And that morning, inmate number 47 discovered a detail that made his blood run cold. Under his bunk, carved into the concrete, fresh, jagged, unmistakable, were 3 symbols. The same symbols he had drawn in his secret toilet paper map 2 weeks earlier. Symbols he never showed anyone, never said out loud, never revealed to another soul. Yet somehow, the block already knew them. The symbols that shouldn't exist. At ADX, inmates aren't supposed to have tools. No pencils, no paper, no sharp metal. So when inmate number 47 found those 3 carved symbols under his bunk, fresh, clean, and perfectly shaped, he knew one thing for certain. No inmate carved them, and no guard would dare. He crouched down, running his fingertips over the grooves. They were deep, far too deep for fingernails, teeth, or improvised objects. It was as if something had etched them into the concrete with impossible precision. The symbols were simple yet unsettling. A circle, a slash, and a second circle broken at the top. He had drawn these exact shapes on the hidden toilet paper sheets 2 weeks earlier. Symbols he invented to track the strange clicking patterns in his cell. He created them. He named them. He used them in secret. So, how did they end up carved beneath his bed? Before he could process it, a loud metallic clang erupted from a hallway. A guard was sliding open the food slot. "Breakfast," the guard grumbled. But the guard didn't look at him, didn't look in the cell, didn't check the unit. He slid the tray and hurried away. Too fast. Too nervous, as if nobody wanted to linger near number 47's door today, because the block knew what happened last night, and on the morning after a 6th night, everyone kept their distance. Number 47 pushed the tray aside, heart still racing. His focus stayed on the symbols. He whispered to himself, "Did I do this? In my sleep?" But even he didn't believe it. Humans can scratch. Humans can scrape. Humans can't carve 6-inch deep symbols into reinforced federal concrete. He sat back on the bunk, clutching the toilet paper map, his secret ritual log. He unrolled it carefully. The symbols were there. But something new appeared beside them, markings he didn't remember writing. A faint charcoal-like streak, jagged and frantic, forming a 4 symbol, a shape that resembled an eye, wide, uneven, watching. He stared at it for a full minute before realizing something impossible. The new symbol wasn't written with pencil, wasn't scratched by fingernail. It was written in dust from the vent, dust that matched the pattern of the vent slats, dust that would only fall if the vent had been disturbed from the inside. His breath caught in his throat, because this meant one thing. The Echo Man wasn't just a voice. He was here, inside this block, inside these walls, inside this cell. And he wasn't done. Suddenly, a violent shiver ran through the cell walls, almost like a tremor. The lights flickered. The air vents groaned. A low-frequency hum pulsed through the metal door. Every inmate in the block froze, because they all knew what that sound meant. It was the start of the second ritual. The ritual far more dangerous than mapping, tapping, or shadow trading. A ritual inmates called the listening hour. The 1 hour of the week when the block goes silent not by design, but by instinct, by fear, because during listening hour, inmates don't speak, don't breathe loudly, don't move. They listen, and whatever is inside the walls listens back, Number 47 swallowed hard. He glanced at the vent. The eye-shaped symbol seemed to stare straight at him. The hum grew louder. The concrete warmed under his feet. Then, from deep inside the wall, behind layers of steel and stone, something exhaled. Not a machine, not air pressure, a breath. Human, but not. A presence. Number 47 backed into the corner of his cell, shaking. And then he heard the voice, closer than ever, whispering directly through the concrete. You drew what belongs to us. The listening hour. Every prison has its unwritten laws. ADX's unwritten rituals. The listening hour is the most feared of them all. It begins with a hum, that low vibration that rolls through the block like a warning. No one knows exactly what causes it. Some believe it's the air filtration system shifting into a backup mode. Others swear it's the building releasing tension through the steel beams. But inmates, they don't explain it. They obey it. When the hum starts, every prisoner on the block freezes. Doesn't matter how tough they are. Doesn't matter who they were on the streets. In ADX, you follow the rituals or you break in ways no psychologist can fix. Inmate number 47 had heard rumors about listening hour during his transfer. Quiet whispers from shackled men around him. Don't talk during the hum. Don't breathe near the vent. And whatever you do, don't answer back. Now, experiencing it firsthand, he understood why. The hum grew deeper, denser, a sound so heavy it felt like pressure pressing against his bones. He backed against the wall, barely able to breathe. Across the block, the silence was absolute. No coughing, no pacing, no panic, just stillness. Then, a soft scrape echoed through the vent, like fingertips dragging across metal. He froze completely. A second scrape followed, slower, curving, deliberate, as if something was drawing a pattern inside the duct. His heart thundered. He covered his mouth, forcing his breath to slow. Minutes passed. The scraping continued. It felt almost playful, like a creature tracing shapes and waiting for reaction. Then the hum shifted, rising in pitch, vibrating through the air like a resonant bell. The scraping stopped instantly. Silence. Except this silence had weight, intention, awareness. A faint whisper bled through the vent. Where's it? Number 47 squeezed his eyes shut. He didn't know if the voice meant the symbol, the map, or him. The whisper came again, clearer this time, too close to ignore. Where's the rest? Suddenly he understood. It wasn't just imitating his ritual symbols. It wasn't just echoing his marks. It wanted the other half of the ritual, the part of the pattern he had not yet drawn, because he hadn't discovered it. Whatever was inside the walls wasn't haunting him. It was learning through him, using him, shaping him into something it understood. Then the entire block jumped, every inmate jolting upright at the same second, when a loud metallic bang tore through the hall. It came from cell 214, Harlan Pierce's cell, the man who read the flickering lights, the man whose rituals somehow synced with number 47's. Guards sprinted down the hallway, keys rattling, radios crackling, boots slamming against the concrete. One guard shouted, "Pierce!" Stepped back from the door, but Pierce didn't respond. He didn't yell, didn't threaten, didn't make a sound. Instead, through the food slot, they saw him standing perfectly still in the center of his cell, arms at his sides, staring directly up at the vent above him, eyes wide open, not blinking. And then he whispered something so quietly that even the guards froze. It found the pattern. At that precise moment, the hum stopped. Listening hour ended. The lights flickered. The vents breathed out. The block exhaled in unison. But number 47 felt none of the relief the others felt, because he knew something no one else did. That whisper, "Where's the rest?" wasn't a threat. It was a clue. The rituals weren't random. They were steps, pieces of a larger system, a code, a map, and he had just triggered the part of the ritual where the prison itself starts responding. The secret patterns. After the 6th night, after the listening hour, after the scraping in the vents and the whispers beneath the floor, inmate number 47 knew something terrifying. The rituals weren't just survival tools. They were instructions, a map, a system. Every tap, every shadow, every symbol carved or drawn. They weren't random. They were connected. And someone or something was following the pattern. He returned to his hidden toilet paper map, laying it out carefully on the cold bunk. Every mark, every click recorded meticulously, every symbol logged in sequence. Then he noticed something he hadn't before, a sequence that repeated over and over in all the rituals he had witnessed. 3 taps, 1 pause, 2 scratches, a shadow raised once, lowered twice, circle, slash, circle, I. It was a sequence that transcended individual rituals. The map, the clicks, the lights, the shadow trades, all of it pointed to a single, impossible conclusion. ADX itself was a ritual. The prison wasn't just a building. It was a puzzle, a machine, a living organism designed to test the human mind, layer by layer, ritual by ritual. Number 47 realized then that the symbols under his bed weren't just marks. They were keys, pieces of the pattern the Echo Man and Harlan Pierce had been following for years. And the hum, the vent whispers, the shadows scraping, all of it was communicating with the pattern. He tried to write it down, but the act itself felt dangerous. Even thinking about it seemed to attract attention. The air felt heavier. The floor beneath him trembled lightly, as if confirming that he had noticed the truth. Then came the first unthinkable step. He moved a small piece of the toilet paper map toward the floor. A simple adjustment, shifting one sequence of symbols slightly. The hum returned instantly, louder, more insistent, vibrating through the steel bunk and the concrete floor. And a new whisper reached his ears, this time unmistakable. You altered it. Now follow. It was not a question. It was an order. Number 47 realized. The rituals had escalated. He could no longer merely observe. He had to act. Or the block, the building, the system, would act for him. The shadows shifted. The faint light above the vent flickered. And somewhere, deep in the hallway, a soft scratching sound began again. A new phase of the ritual had begun. He was no longer a passive survivor. He was now a participant, a player. And a single misstep could erase him from the block. Or worse. He swallowed hard, staring at the eye symbol freshly carved in the dust. The toilet paper map trembled in his hand. And somewhere in the vent, the whisper came again. Follow the pattern or become the echo. Following the pattern, inmate number 47 had no choice. The rituals had become a living entity, and ignoring them was no longer an option. He studied his map, the hidden toilet paper map, and the carved symbols, every line, every circle, every scratch. He began to see connections he hadn't noticed before. The clicks in the walls, the shadow gestures, the hums, the vent whispers, all of it followed a precise rhythm, like a heartbeat running through the concrete. Number 47 realized that each ritual corresponded to a step he had to take inside his cell. One wrong move, and the system would punish him. He started small, shifting his shadow across the floor in the exact pattern suggested by the symbols, tapping the floor in rhythm with the mysterious clicks, tracing his fingers along the concrete edges in time with the hum. Hours passed. Nothing seemed to happen. Then, as if triggered by his compliance, the block shifted. The air grew colder, but heavier. The fluorescent lights hummed in perfect synchronization with the tapping. A faint vibration ran through the walls. And then, from the vent, a new whisper. Good. Now the next step. He realized the rituals weren't static. They were evolving. Every step revealed the next, and every misstep had consequences. He hesitated. The symbols told him to trace a new pattern under the bunk, a sequence of shapes he hadn't seen before. A triangle, a line, a spiral. He traced them carefully, breathing shallowly, heart pounding. The hum escalated. A shadow flickered at the corner of the cell. Not his own. It twisted and stretched unnaturally, growing longer with every movement of his hand. Then the voice whispered again. Do not stop. Do not falter. The pattern must be completed. He obeyed, trembling. The shadow shifted again, closer, watching him. The The symbols he traced seemed to glow faintly in the dim light, a ghostly luminescence that reflected in the vent slats. He understood now. The rituals weren't just to survive. They were a test of obedience, precision, and perception. The block wasn't just a prison. It was a living system, observing, adapting, and punishing. And the most terrifying realization hit him. The Echo Man, the shadow scraping, the sixth night, the listening hour, all of it existed to train him, to shape him, to prepare him for something greater. A final whisper, low and deliberate, vibrated through the vent. Complete the pattern or become nothing. Number 47 looked down at the sequence before him. The lines, the shapes, the symbols. He swallowed, and with a trembling hand, he began the next step. The ritual had begun, and there was no turning back. The shadow's hand. Hours bled into each other. Inmate number 47 moved with precise, almost robotic motions, tracing the symbols and tapping the floor to the rhythm only he could hear. Then it happened. The shadow moved independently. It wasn't following him anymore. It was leading. At first, it shifted slowly, crawling along the floor like a liquid black ink. Then, with deliberate intent, it stretched toward the corner of the cell, forming what could only be described as a hand. A hand that was entirely shadow, yet shaped like it could grasp. Number 47 froze. The air felt thicker. His skin prickled. Every instinct screamed to stop. But the whisper returned, insistent and commanding. Reach out. Follow the shadow. Complete the pattern. He hesitated. Every nerve in his body warned him. The shadow wasn't his. It had a mind of its own. And yet, the ritual demanded compliance. With shaking fingers, he moved toward it. The shadow hand extended slightly, as if inviting him, testing him. He placed his hand over the concrete, hovering just above the surface. The vibration through the floor intensified. The hum of the block rose into a dissonant symphony. The shadow hand twitched and pulsed like it was alive. Then, suddenly it recoiled, and a low, guttural whisper echoed from every vent, every crack, every steel edge. Do it correctly or remain forever. He realized in that moment this ritual was a trap. The symbols, the taps, the shadows, they weren't just survival tools. They were a challenge. Complete the pattern correctly and maybe survive. Fail and be claimed by the block itself. Number 47's hand shook as he moved closer. The shadow stretched further, brushing against his sleeve without touching it. It felt cold, unnatural, yet not entirely inhuman. And then the room shifted. The hum dropped lower, vibrating through the walls like a pulse. The floor beneath him seemed to rise slightly, subtle, imperceptible, yet unmistakable. ADX Florence, the fortress of concrete and steel, was alive, and it was testing him. He whispered to himself, barely audible, I will finish it. I have to. The shadow hand moved again, guiding him toward a part of the cell he had never explored, a corner hidden in darkness. He followed, every movement deliberate, tracing the lines of the ritual with a precision he didn't know he had. Then, at the corner, the shadow stopped, formed a perfect circle, and slowly, impossibly, it pressed itself into the floor. A hollow, metallic click echoed from beneath the concrete. Something moved. Something shifted. And number 47 realized the next phase had begun. He was no longer just an observer. He was part of the prison's ritual, its next participant, and he could feel it watching, learning, shaping him. The underfloor whisper, the metallic click under the concrete echoed longer than it should have. It wasn't just sound, it was a signal, a vibration, a heartbeat in the floor beneath him. Inmate number 47 froze, palms hovering over the faintly glowing symbols he had traced. The shadow hand had disappeared, leaving only a dark smear across the floor. But the whisper returned, this time coming not from the vent, not from the wall, not from the air. It came from beneath him. You know the pattern, but do you understand it? The words reverberated through the concrete, like liquid metal. His knees buckled slightly. Every instinct screamed for him to retreat. But retreat wasn't an option. The ritual demanded participation. He crouched low, pressing an ear to the floor. And then he heard it, faint scratching deep within the underfloor ducts, a rhythmic scraping, a whisper movement. It was the Echo Man, or whatever remained of him, or perhaps something older, darker, feeding off the block's rituals. Number 47 realized something horrifying. The rituals weren't just sequential. They were layered, cascading, each layer unlocking the next. The clicks in the walls, the shadows, the hum, the symbols. They were all part of an intricate system designed to draw the mind outward, beyond the cell, beyond the block, into something else, something alive. He pressed his fingers against the concrete and traced the spiral symbol he had discovered during the sixth night. Immediately, the scratching stopped. A pause. Then the floor vibrated violently, and a new whisper cut through. Now follow the spiral. It will guide you. The spiral on the floor seemed to ripple slightly beneath his fingers, like a faint current running through solid concrete. Every nerve in his body screamed danger. Every instinct screamed that the next step could cost him his mind, or worse. Yet he traced it, line by line, curve by curve, fingers trembling, heart hammering. And then it happened. The floor gave a hollow resonance beneath him. A panel slid silently, revealing a narrow slit, impossibly small, perfectly cut into the reinforced concrete. The hum stopped. The shadows faded. The block held its breath. And from the slit came a final whisper. Step forward. Complete the ritual or be claimed forever. Number 47 stared at the opening. Cold sweat poured down his face. This wasn't a cell anymore. This wasn't just a ritual. This was a choice. Step forward and risk the unknown. Or stay and risk being consumed by the very system he had been trying to navigate. The sixth night, the listening hour, the clicks, the shadows, the whispering floor, all led to this moment. A moment where survival wasn't just about following a pattern. It was about stepping into the heart of ADX Florence itself. He took a deep breath, and then he stepped forward. The rituals that remain. Inmate number 47 stepped forward. Beyond the symbols, beyond the whispers, beyond the sixth night. What happened next? No official record exists. Some say he emerged days later, silent, changed, a shadow of a man. Others say he was never seen again, claimed entirely by the block. ADX Florence does not forgive. It does not forget, and it does not merely lock you away. It observes. It tests. It teaches the rituals of survival at a cost few are willing to pay. The strange rituals invented by the inmates, the tapping, the shadows, the spirals, the whispers, they are more than coping mechanisms. They are signs, warnings, keys to understanding a place designed to erase identity, erase time, erase hope, and the most terrifying truth, the rituals never end. They persist in the silence between the walls, in the flicker of the lights, in the shadow of every bunk, waiting for the next mind, the next soul, to step forward and follow the pattern. ADX Florence is a prison of concrete, steel, and isolation, but it is also a prison of the mind. And for those who live there, even for a moment, the rituals are all that remain. So if you think you understand what it takes to survive in ADX, think again, because the prison doesn't just contain you. It watches, it listens, and it waits for you to invent your own way to survive. The echoes of those rituals linger forever,